I wake to the sound of metal breathing. Not a hiss of pressure or the groan of weight, but a slow, measured respiration that fills the bones of the ship. It exhales through the decks, through the pipework and plating, like lungs of iron drawing in prayer. When you serve long enough below the hull, you stop hearing it as noise. It becomes heartbeat. It becomes law. The lights never truly sleep down here. They dim, perhaps, but never go dark. The void hates darkness, it stirs in it. So the glow panels remain alive with amber light, the same dull hue as sanctified oil, and that glow paints everything the color of old devotion. My bunk sits against the conduit wall. It trembles faintly when the field resonates through the machine. I like the tremor, it means the Emperor is still near. The others say I sleep better than most, that I trust the field too much. Maybe, but I have always believed that faith is most true when it hums, when it makes the metal shiver with it. Each morning I rise before the bells and wash my hands in the cooling overflow from the plasma lines. The water tastes of iron and ozone, a holy bitterness that cleanses the mind more than the flesh. Then I recite the litany of circuits, 12 verses spoken into the hum, each one meant to harmonize with a different frequency of the Gellar engine. The old Enginseer once told us the rite is superstition. He's half machine now. He doesn't understand that superstition is faith when you're alone between stars. When the others arrive, the air already trembles with vibration. Rutha begins her chant first, her voice rasping like a gear, turning without teeth. Marn lights the incense wicks along the copper ribs, and the smoke curls through the chamber like pale souls seeking bodies. I kneel beside the anointing valves. The sanctified oil rests within a brass ampulla engraved with prayers so old the letters have worn smooth. I open it carefully, for spilling even a drop is sacrilege, and trace the sign of the Aquila on the nearest support strut. O Emperor, in machine and metal, breathe upon thy servants, I whisper. The scent of oil is strong today, heavy. It drips with a strange warmth, almost as if the ampulla had been resting on a living body. I rub the slickness between my fingers and begin the daily hymn. The melody is simple, no more than 3 rising tones repeated endlessly. Yet when sung against the hum of the field, it resonates, weaving human breath with divine mechanism. I do not notice at first that something is wrong. It begins as the smallest tremor, a misstep in the rhythm. One of the tuning rods shivers out of harmony. It should be impossible. The machine spirits are precise. I stop mid-chant, unsure if the fault lies in me. The hum recovers, then falters again, a single skipped note in an infinite song. For a heartbeat, the air stills. The light dims to a dull pulse. My stomach knots, an instinct older than faith. I look to the others. Rutha continues her chant, unaware. Marn's eyes are closed, lips moving in rote prayer. No one else felt it. Perhaps I imagined it. Perhaps I wanted to. I resume the hymn, forcing each word through the tightening in my chest. When the rite ends, I climb toward the upper gallery to record the readings. The corridor smells of cold brass and lingering incense. Each step echoes like a confession. Through a narrow viewport, I glimpse the void. Warp light writhes beyond the barrier, colors that do not belong to light at all, pulsing hues of thought and hunger pressed against the world's edge. I have seen the warp before, yet it always feels new, always wrong, like staring at your own reflection and finding it breathing back. The Gellar field is what keeps that reflection from entering. It separates what is from what should not be. I trust in that. Still, I find myself tracing the Aquila across my chest before moving on. At midday, the Enginarium overseer summons me for inspection. The chamber is vast as a cathedral, lined with conduits like ribs, the central node glowing with amber fire. The tech priests stand in a half circle, their robes whispering as servo arms move with insect precision. Their faces are veiled by machinery and devotion alike. The field fluctuated at 0.329 by 0.3%, the overseer intones, voice grated by vox distortion. A momentary deviation in harmonic stability. "Was there danger, Magos?" I ask. "There is always danger," she replies. But this was different. A feedback echo that did not originate from within. I frown. Then, from outside, she finishes, as if something listened when we sang. The incense clouds thicken. I can't see her eyes, only the dull red glimmer of her optics. Behind her, the Gellar node hums, deep and alive. One of the spirit plates, etched with the seal of Saint Corvain, bears a new fracture along its edge. I bow, murmuring, "May his light mend what is broken. Light cannot mend." The Magos answers softly, "It only reveals." When I leave the chamber, her words follow me. Our shift meal is brief. We sit in the mess void, walls sweating with condensation, air heavy with the metallic tang of recirculated breath. The hum is louder here. You can feel it through your teeth. Marn, still young enough to remember fear, asks between mouthfuls of nutrient paste, "Do you ever think the field gets tired?" Rutha laughs, a sound like rust breaking. "The Emperor does not tire. But what if he's not the one holding it?" Marn persists. "What if it's just us? And the singing?" I set down my cup. Then we sing louder. That ends it. No one wants to discuss such thoughts. To imagine the field as fallible is to invite the warp to listen, and everyone knows the warp always listens. Later, when I lie in my bunk, the hum seeps into my dreams. I see corridors flooded with golden light, pulsating like the inside of a living thing. Each breath draws that light deeper into me until it fills my lungs. I wake with the taste of copper and oil on my tongue. The chronometer reads 0329. The same moment the fluctuation occurred. For a long time I sit upright, counting the rhythm of the hum against my heartbeat. They are identical, perfectly aligned. I tell myself this is good, that harmony is safety. Yet some part of me wonders which of us is following the other. In the morning, I find condensation beading along the conduits, thick as sweat. The air is warmer than it should be. When I wipe the moisture from a panel, my fingers come away streaked with something darker than water. The smell is faintly sweet, almost like blood turned to incense. I clean it quickly, whispering apologies to the machine spirit. At the shift's end, I return to the viewport. The warp is closer today. I can feel it pressing like a tide against the invisible barrier. The colors ripple, forming almost patterns that my mind struggles to deny. I think I see faces there, luminous and shifting, but the moment I focus, they dissolve back into nothing. I whisper the traveler's prayer. "Light of the throne, be the wall between me and the dark." The reflection on the glass seems to mouth the words a heartbeat after me. When I turn away, I swear the hum follows. That night, before rest, I visit the small shrine near the coolant vents. It is a humble thing, 3 candles, a fragment of Saint Bone, a rusted aquila bolted to the bulkhead. I kneel and speak aloud, though there is no one to hear. "Emperor of mankind, keeper of the flame, if you listen through the field, hear me. Let the hum be your breath. Let the oil be your blood. Keep the walls strong." The candles flicker, then steady again. The hum grows softer, as though acknowledging the prayer. For a time, I feel peace. But peace, like all things aboard a ship, is borrowed. The bells for midnight echo through the lower decks, a dull sequence of tones reverberating through the walls. I am half asleep when it happens again, the skip, the falter, only for an instant, but enough to wake me. Silence follows. True silence, the kind you never hear in the void. Then the hum returns stronger, deeper, as if the ship had drawn a great breath after drowning. It shakes the bunk. Dust falls from the ceiling. My pulse hammers in time with it. And beneath the noise, faint but certain, I think I hear another sound. Not the voice of metal. Something slower. Wet. Rhythmic. Breathing. They say the warp can't be heard through metal. They say the Emperor's light hums loud enough to drown everything else. I used to believe that. The day begins with a tremor too faint for the instruments. A tremor only the faithful can feel. The hum of the Gellar field runs higher, almost sharp, a note stretched too thin. When I press my palm to the conduit, the vibration trembles like a frightened pulse. It isn't pain, not yet, but something in the tone feels hollow. The Vox techs are already gathering when I reach the communications deck. Their chamber lies deep within the hull, where the ship's machine throat swallows all sound. The walls are covered in transmission shrines, copper-mouthed Vox grills carved like open faces, each one surrounded by votive seals. A faint incense haze clings to everything, mingled with the smell of static and burnt dust. Magister Vaughn stands in front of the central console, head bowed, hands slick with conductive oil. He doesn't look up when I enter. The choir's tone is drifting, he murmurs. 43 Hz deviation in the lower harmonic. That's within tolerance, I reply. He shakes his head. Not this time. The drift isn't mechanical. It's responsive, like something's mimicking the signal from outside. The words settle heavy in the air. The only sound is the static hiss of the Vox units, breathing in and out like the ship itself. I glance at the nearest grill. Its copper mesh seems to tremble, faintly, as though it were listening. We begin the calibration ritual, 3 cycles of transmission litanies, 1 for each choir line. I recite the verse of shielding, my voice echoing in the hum. The consoles respond in kind, a deep tone rolling like thunder beneath the metal floor. Everything seems normal, almost. Then a sound leaks through the static. Not a voice, not truly. More like a breath caught between syllables, wet, faint, close. I glance at Vaughn, but he keeps working. The sound fades before I can name it. When we finish the calibration, the readings appear stable again. Still, I can't shake the feeling of being overheard. I spend the next hours walking the upper decks. Pilgrims fill the corridors, their robes brushing the metal like whispers. They carry relics, bones, scraps of parchment, tiny gilded skulls. Every deck has its own tone, its own way of singing back to the field. The further you go from the engines, the weaker the hum feels. The air there is cooler, thinner, the silence heavier. Near the midships chapel, I pass 2 choir acolytes standing beside the Vox terminal. They bow when they see me. One of them, a girl with shaven scalp and augmetic throat, looks uneasy. "Brother," she says softly, "our hymn won't carry. The Vox returns only. Echo. Echo." I ask. She nods. Like a mouth that repeats, but not the same words. She touches the grill with trembling fingers. The copper hums briefly under her touch. For a moment, I think I hear a second voice beneath hers, too soft to catch, too close to the edge of meaning. I step back. "Seal the terminal," I tell her. "No transmissions until the Enginseers purge the line." She nods, but I see doubt in her eyes. The faithful obey, but the faithful also feel. And whatever she felt, it wasn't holy. At last I return to the maintenance shrine. The others are there. Rutha bent over a valve, Marn polishing the hymn engines with a cloth soaked in sanctified oil. The hum steadies under their touch. Rutha glances up as I enter. "You heard it too," she says. I pause. "Heard what?" "The silence." She smiles without mirth. It's louder than the hum. Marn looks up, hesitant. "The Vox has gone quiet on half the decks. The officers said it's routine interference, but..." He hesitates, listening. "Do you hear that?" We all fall silent. The air feels heavy, thick with static. Then nothing. The ever-present vibration falters, fading to a low, irregular thrum. For a heartbeat, the ship feels still. When the hum returns, it comes with a faint undertone. Like a voice too far away to reach, murmuring behind the metal. I can't tell if it's real or if the mind invents sound to fill the void. Rutha crosses herself with oil-stained fingers. "He's testing us," she whispers. The Emperor withdraws, his voice to see if we'll keep singing. But even she doesn't sound convinced. That night, the Vox corridors are deserted. The consoles glow with weak light, their icons flickering like dying candles. I sit alone before one, reciting the prayer of harmonization. It's supposed to stabilize the signal. Instead, the static grows louder, the rhythm erratic, almost like words forming, swallowed and remade. "Magister Vaughn." I call softly into the grill. For a moment, nothing. Then the speaker crackles. His voice answers. Faint, distorted. "I'm here. Don't adjust the frequency." "Where are you?" I ask. "The signal's weak." "Where are you?" "Bah." Another burst of static. Then again, "Don't adjust the frequency." I freeze. The cadence is wrong. The same phrase repeated, tone identical each time. Not speech, playback. "Vaughn." I whisper again. The static deepens, like a sea inhaling. "You shouldn't have listened." The console sparks. The sound cuts off. Silence floods the chamber. I step back, heart pounding. The copper grill is warm to the touch, almost fever hot. I smell burnt dust, ozone, and beneath it, something wet. When the Enginseers arrive an hour later, the console is dead. Vaughn is nowhere aboard. I find Vaughn's kit still open on the bench. Beside the master array, spanners laid out like surgical instruments. A coil of sanctified cable coiled with ritual neatness. His personal prayer scroll pinned under a data slate so it would not flutter in the breath of the exhaust. He never left tools unblessed, never left prayers unbound. That, more than the dead console, knots my gut. Rutha joins me an hour after the Enginseers leave, leaning heavy on the rail as though the ship's gravity had thickened. "They sealed 3 Vox ducts," she says. "Called them contaminated." "By what?" She shrugs, eyes on the dark grill. Silence. The word sits like a stone between us. We both know what silence means here. A place where the field's chant doesn't reach, where the hum thins to a thread, where pressure gathers with nowhere to go. The warp abhors emptiness. It fills it. I gather Vaughn's tools, one by one, wiping each with oilcloth while whispering the verse of reclamation. My hands shake, not from fear, I tell myself, but from ritual intensity. His prayer scroll catches my eye. 2 lines, cramped and careful, in his tight script. "Let my words ride the breath of the machine. Let what answers be only you." I slip the parchment under my vambrace. It feels like a relic, and I need a relic now, with things in common. By second bell, the upper decks taste of metal rain. Condensation beads along every seam, cold to the tongue, sterile as distilled dread. Pilgrims move with the solemn slowness of people listening for something they pray not to hear. The chapel servitors polish the brass aquila, movement precise, eyes blank. A child tugs his mother's sleeve, points at a Vox altar. "Why does the saint whisper, ma'am?" he asks. "Hush," she says, and her hand trembles as she presses his head to her side. I drift past the altar. The grill breathes a faint current. It has been sealed with wax and sealant, prayer stamps upon it like a rash of eyes. Yet beneath the layered wards, if I press my ear close to the cold metal, I hear the softest scrape. Not a word, the idea of a word, the shape of breath preparing to become one. I recoil and make the sign. The wax is warm where it should be hard. "Brother?" A voice behind me, soft. The augmetic throat acolyte from before stands with a censer, smoke haloing her shaven scalp. The Enginseers said we're to avoid that altar. I was avoiding it, I lie. Her ribbon voice hums. "I prayed here at dawn." Something repeated the prayer. Only, each time, there was one less word. How many times? She looks at the floor. Until the prayer was just breath. Do nothing alone, I tell her. Not even fear. She nods, which is not the same as obeying. With things in common. Back below. The maintenance shrine sounds wrong. It isn't the hum itself. The primary harmonic remains steady, a deep steadiness that anchors the bones. It is the space around the note, a thinning, as if the hum were being lifted out of the air, leaving its outline but no weight. The oil lamps flicker without draft. Marn stands at the tuning rods, eyes glassy with lost sleep. They told me to raise the third tonal by a half mark, he says. The reading's low. The third? I frown. That would pull the field tight against the hull. We only do that in emergency, he whispers. He swallows. They said not to say the word. He cranks the rod anyway. The hum climbs a fraction, keening slender, and for one breath it's as if our ship narrows, gangways tightening, rooms shrinking to fit a sound too lean. The warding sigils along the ribs rattle like teeth. Then it steadies, but something remains misplaced. The air feels lighter and heavier at once. Rutha cocks her head, listening. Hear it. I listen. There it is, a second beat. Not quite synchronous with the main pulse, tapping like a finger against the hull from very far away. Tap, tap, tap. Not fast, patient. It's nothing, I say. Interference. From where? I have no answer. That's That's. 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 My feet take me back to the Vox labyrinths, the crawls and catwalks that run like veins around the ship's throat. Here the walls are close and sweating, the grills arrayed in ranks like 100 mouths shut to prayer. A light flickers at the far end, stuttering in a rhythm that almost makes a word. I breathe the prayer, Vaughan wrote. I breathe it again. When the light dies, I keep walking. I pass the central array where he vanished. A new ward has been bolted to the bulkhead, a slab of iron etched with sigils. It hums faintly beneath my palm. There's a smear there too, at its edge dark, not oil. I smell it, not blood, not anything I can name, though it makes my tongue ache as if tasting a color. Brother. The word comes from the grill before me. I stop so suddenly my knee jars the rail. Vaughan. Static answers, a long inhalation. Then, like a hand testing a glove, the console tries on his voice. Brother. It fits badly, consonants slipping. Where are you? It repeats, distorted, as if the device were learning to speak while already speaking. Where are you? Where are you? I swallow the bile that rises. If you can hear me, say the phrase. Say, only what answers be. You. Silence. Not empty. Listening. Then the console exhales a spill of sibilance. Oh, only what and answers be. It coughs a sound like a wet hinge. Then, in a hoarse near whisper that chills me more than mimicry. Closer. I yank the sanctified cable from the port. The grill goes dead. The corridor rings with the aftersound, like a bell struck underwater. My hands will not stop shaking. I press my brow to the cold rail until the metal gives me some of its stillness. Then I replace the cable, reward the port, and back away with the slow care of a man leaving an altar that has grown teeth. That's The officers issue an edict by third bell. All non-essential Vox muted. All hymn transmissions centralized. choirs to be sequestered, pilgrim devotions to be silent, lips moving without sound. It feels wrong to watch hundreds pray without a voice, like seeing men drown while forbidden to shout, but the order stands. We learn quickly that silence is not safety. It is bait. In the dormitory gallery, I wake to the absence of sound, no breathing, no creak of bunks, dozens of bodies in rows, perfectly still. For a heartbeat, I fear them dead. Then, a sleeper exhales and 50 others follow, as if their lungs all waited for one permission. The air moves in a single wave. The hair on my arms lifts. Something has taught us to breathe together. Afterward, the hum seems pleased. Deeper, a purr in the steel. The field reads one notch stronger on the dial. "See?" says a junior tech later in the mess void. "Containment by obedience." Obedience to what? Ruther asks without looking up. No one replies. That's 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 By dusk cycle, the dead vox ducts multiply. Each is marked by a strip of black cloth tied to its grill. The cloth does not move in the breath of the ship. Even when I pass close, the air feels heavy around those knots, as if it has turned to glass. We root around them, like scars. I am summoned to the choir vault to assist with a purgation rite. The vault is vast and round, the ceiling lost in shadow, the floor a lacework of grates over plunging dark. The choir stands in disciplined ranks upon their platforms, mouths closed, throats humming below hearing. Their choirmaster beats a metronome, not wood, not metal, but bone, and each click lands like a nail sinking into plank. An enginseer intones formulae, while acolytes splash sanctified solvent over the vox pylons. The solvent runs like pale tears. As I climb the service ladder to inspect an upper relay, I notice the drops do not fall. They hang trembling in the air for a breath, then slide sideways along a path not aligned with gravity. I watch 3 more descend, and each veers as if pulled by a different, invisible slope. I mark their paths in chalk. No, to agree on down. When the purgation completes, the enginseer asks for readings. Stronger by a fraction, I report. My voice sounds too loud in that place. Good, she says. We will buy ourselves hours. Hours for what? She does not answer. We both know. As the choir disperses, the augmetic throat acolyte lingers near me. Her eyes, wide and red-rimmed, study my hands as if they might steady hers. You were right, she says, about not praying alone. I didn't. And still, her mechanical larynx jitters. I mouthed the creed in silence, with the others. The words formed in my skull, and something behind them formed a different sentence using the same shape. What did it say? She shakes her head. I cannot speak it. If I try, my teeth ache. I want to tell her that we are safe, that the field holds, that our faith makes the barrier thick as God's hand. Instead, I say, keep someone by you. I will. Brother, do you hear it breathing? I do not lie. Yes, that's 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 In the lower maintenance corridor that feeds the Gellar nodes, we hang new wards with hands that try not to tremble. Maan works beside me in silence until he doesn't. I used to think the field was a wall, he says softly. Stone, metal, absolute. Now it feels like skin tears. I say, Harsher than I intend. I know. He falls quiet. After a time he adds, if it's skin, then maybe it can feel us. Maybe it protects us because it knows we're part of it. Or because we sing, I say. And the singing is what it understands. A pipe somewhere above us ticks as it cools. Then a new sound, a soft brace of static, like a dry tongue on a tooth. It comes from the inspection hatch at our feet. We both stare at the seam where the hatch meets the deck. The noise continues, faint, inquiring, as if listening for our names. Don't open it, I whisper. Mon nods. I won't. We do not breathe for 3 heartbeats. The noise ceases. The hum deepens again, pleased. Brother, he says after a long time, voice thin. What if this is the test we prayed for? What test? To be heard. That's 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 It is around the false midnight, our lights dimmed to pretend a circadian rhyme that the ship pauses its breath. I am awake when it happens. The hum has lulled me to the edge of sleep in my bunk, that gentle iron lullaby that has been my mother longer than memory. Then it stops. Not fades, not slips, not trembles. Stops. The air loses weight. The bones of the ship unclench. In that hole between beats, the world is a bell jar. I hear my own heart like a fist knocking on an empty door. I hear the roll of moisture inside the pipe like a throat swallowing. I hear my name, nearly, as the shape a mouth would make before it learns speech. I do not move. I do not think I could. After an eternity as thin as a hair, the hum returns with a gasp that rattles the light in its cradle. The whole compartment exhales. Somewhere a pilgrim screams. Somewhere a child laughs because terror becomes laughter when the body cannot accommodate it. I sit up slowly, the sweat cooling on my back. I taste oil again. Copper. My hands find the aquila at my chest and close around it until the edges bite skin. If the field can pause, it can fail. I report to the enginarium, unbidden. Others have done the same. The deck throngs with those who would rather watch the heart than wait for it to stop. The tech priests speak in Binharik aside, voices like insects in glass. They do not meet our eyes. A screen shows the harmonic lines, 3 primaries and a cascade of fractions. I have looked upon those lines for years and never seen them bow. Now the 3rd primary bows, dips, holds, rises. A pause, crisp as a command. A held breath. How long? 7/10 of a second, the Magos says. Then 1.1. She does not look away from the screen. Then, later, there will be longer. What do we do? I ask. She turns at last. The glow paints her augmetics in the color of sanctuary lamps. You ask God for a miracle, she says, and you keep your mouth closed unless you are sure it is Him who opens it. On the way back to my post, I pass a wall shrine where a little congregation of lower deckers kneel in silence. Their hands cup invisible warmth. I kneel with them because I cannot bear to be upright. For a while, my thoughts are a coil of noise and breath. Then they slow. The ship breathes in, out, in. I find my voice only within my head, where no grill can catch it. Light of the throne, be the wall. If the wall must bleed, let it be mine, not theirs. The hum seems to lean toward the prayer, like a sleeper turning in their rest. It does not answer. Perhaps it doesn't need to. Responses, I am beginning to understand, are not what we require. Only the continuation of breath. I rise and, for the first time since I signed my oath to the engines, I do not trust my voice. I hold my tongue like a relic. I work with my hands. I keep time with my pulse. I listen to the silences between the notes and measure doubt in the spaces where sound should be. And when the pause comes again, longer, colder, a breath withheld like judgment, I count it not as 7/10 or 1.1, but as the exact length of my faith. There is no creative no screes becon tuening. There is no creative no screes. 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 There is no creative no creative no screes. And there is no creative no creative no screed. There is no creative no creative no creative no creative no screes. There is no creative no. When my shift ends, the corridor to my bunk is a tunnel of whispering metal. Pipes tremble with the drafts of unseen lungs. Somewhere, a sealed grill ticks like the throat of a patient trying not to cough. I walk slowly, fingers brushing the wall. It feels warmer than the air. It feels like skin. In my berth, I do not lie down. I sit on the edge of the bunk and hold Vaughn's scroll between both palms. I read the line again. Let what answers be only you. I know now that something answers. I know now that I cannot tell who. I blow out the lamp and let the hum fill the dark with its measured grace. The ship breathes. I breathe. Between us, thin as faith, a silence lengthens and does not break. And for the first time since I learned the rights of the field, doubt sits beside my bed and does not leave when I bid it. The light changes first. Not brightness, not color weight. It feels heavier when it falls on the skin, as if illumination itself has gained gravity. I notice it while walking the mid-decks, where the pilgrim galleries open onto the stained steel nave. The glow panels shiver between tones of gold and ash. Each pulse syncs with the heartbeat of the ship, though no one ever meant them to. Every vessel of the Imperium is a cathedral that forgot it was once a ship. Ours more than most. The St. Corvain's Mercy bears windows shaped like icons and a bridge crowned with a reliquary dome. When the lights falter, the saints carved into the bulkheads seem to breathe, their metal eyelids fluttering in artificial dusk. Pilgrims call it a blessing, the saints blinking. I know better. Metal should not blink. The hum that had grown uneven after the silence still holds, yet the pitch now drags the light with it. Where the vibration dips, shadows stretch. Where it swells, the glow panels flare until the paint on the walls smokes. We live inside a living pulse. The Emperor's heart, they call it. I think it is learning another rhythm. At first, the officers pretend it is a power regulation issue. They send work crews with incense and patch kits, engine seers trailing data cables like leashes. They chant as they move, every motion a verse. I follow them to record the readings, to feel useful, to believe the lie that we still serve the same ship. In the gallery of Deck 16, the light burns white cold for 3 breaths, then drops into a low amber murk. The sudden change reveals stains on the wall that were invisible before. Oil, I hope. They form arcs like wings folded backward. The youngest tech crosses himself. It was not there an hour ago. He whispers. The Magos ignores him, eyes fixed on her slate. Fluctuation in photonic feed. Nothing spiritual. I want to believe her. Yet when the light steadies again, the stains are gone. Not dried. Gone. Evening cycle. Pilgrim mass. The chapel is packed, air thick with incense and bodies. The choir stands before the great lumen window that looks out into the void. Its glass, a mosaic of burned gold, usually shows only darkness beyond. Tonight it glows. A pale shimmer washes across the pane, colors that defy catechism, violet that tastes of salt, green that hums. The congregation falls to its knees. Some weep, thinking it miracle. The cardinal captain raises his hands, voice trembling. Behold, the emperor's veil made visible. But the shimmer moves against the ship's drift, crawling over the glass from edge to center like frost forming inward. Where it passes, The gold leaf darkens, as though something on the other side breathes cold through it. Rutha is beside me. "That's the field," she murmurs. "It's too close." The choir begins the benediction of transit, long notes that should harmonize with the field's hum. Instead, the light flares with each word, blinding in pulses. The sound distorts. Vox throats crackle. Half the congregation presses hands to ears. The other half keeps singing, because to stop singing is worse. Then, as the final note fades, every lumen on the deck dies. The void window glows once more from outside, not in. For the first time, we see our reflection move on its own. It takes 10 seconds for the auxiliary lights to engage. In that brief darkness, I hear the sound of breath drawn by 1,000 people and not released. When the glow panels ignite again, the glass is black, the shimmer gone. The congregation disperses without order, whispering fragments of the same question none dare finish aloud. I help Rutha steady an old pilgrim whose eyes are bleeding from light burst. He smiles at me through red tears. "He showed himself," he says. "He was beautiful." I can't answer. There is beauty in lightning, too. Later, the engineers forbid further masses until photonic stability is restored. They do not explain how light can be unstable. I return to the maintenance shrine to log the report. Marn is there, seated cross-legged on the deck, staring at the lumen strip overhead. It flickers in slow rhythm. 5 pulses long. Pause. 5 again like a coded breath. Is it deliberate? I ask. Iconda too has. He shrugs. If it is, we're answering it wrong. The strip pops, burns out, leaving us in half shadow. Marn doesn't move. It feels like it's watching, waiting for us to forget it's still on. The first superstition arrives within the hour. Do not look into your own shadow when the lights pulse. No order posts it, no priest declares it. It spreads the way fear always does, mouth to ear, hand to shoulder, a rule felt in the spine before the tongue can phrase it. I hear it from a fuel runner, who heard it from a shrine keeper, who heard it from a child who refused to step on his silhouette as it stretched thin across the deck. Why? I ask the runner. He shrugs, jaw tight. Saw a man trip when the lumen strobed. Shadow went the other way. He won't meet my eyes. He didn't hit the floor where he fell. I don't pursue it. There are only so many ways to say no to a thing the blood already knows. On deck 19, the glow panels stutter so slowly that the darkness between pulses feels like a held word. The engineers plant portable lumen totems, thin pylons wound with prayer wire, and each gives off a modest ring of honest light. Those circles become islands in a sea of murk. Pilgrims cluster within them, lips moving soundlessly, eyes fixed on the trembling borders. At the edge of one pool of light, I watch the brightness breathe. It inflates with the ship's hum, deflates with the ship's pause. A child tests the line with the toe of his boot as if it were water. The light clings to his leather and only reluctantly lets go. His mother snatches him back with a sound that is not quite a sob. "Brother," she whispers to me. "Is the Emperor angry?" "No," I say, and wish it were true. Anger would be simpler than indifference, simpler than being overheard. We pass under a corridor shrine where a lumen icon of Saint Verena burns steady in defiance of the rest. Someone has rubbed oil on the brass to make her shine. In the icon, the saint holds a sword in one hand and a lamp in the other. The lamp has always been symbolic. Tonight it sheds real flame glow across the deck, soft as dawn. The pilgrims exhale like a single relieved animal. Then the icon blinks. Not the light, the saint. Her metal eyelids draw down and up in a movement too smooth for forgery. The flame in the lamp flutters as if buffeted by breath. The pilgrims freeze. No one kneels. No one dares set foot beneath that gaze. Rutha, behind me, mutters under her breath, "Metal should not blink." I do not tell her I have thought this since the morning. It feels like blasphemy to notice twice. We move on. They will ever lever. Very lever. They will ever lever. And lever. They will ever lever. Rougher. And it's not. To I ways. And it's not. They will ever lever. They will ever lever. And are. And wheeze. With I will ever lever. Near the spine of the ship. The power conduits feed the Gellar projectors with a steady surge, the color of winter sunlight. The readings should reassure me. Voltage within expected range, harmonic drift corrected by counterchant. Consumption patterns normal. Yet the light they feed is wrong. It behaves like a creature that has learned our attention and wants more of it. In the relay crawl space, Marn lies on his back beneath an open junction. Laminations spread like the ribs of a metal animal. He has wired 2 lumen strips into the panel to get a better look. One fails. Then the other strengthens until its glow seems to soak into his skin. He looks sickly, sanctified, haloed by factory dawn. You're too close, I tell him. He doesn't answer. His eyes reflect the light without showing it. When I reach to tug him free by the cuff, the light sticks to my fingers, not heat, not wet, a tackiness like sunlight thickened. I pull harder and it resists, elastic. Marn blinks as if waking. I heard the field clock, he murmurs. A child counting on the other side of a door. How high? He swallows. Only to 5. Did you answer? He shakes his head. I didn't know how. We close the panel and the light lets go. A filament of brightness trails from my glove to the junction and snaps with a sound like a string breaking. 7s. These together. Cast. Together. B. Together. 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 The edict goes ship-wide before next bell. All lumen inspections to be performed in pairs. No one to walk the void window galleries during strobe periods. All mirrors to be shrouded. The last clause snags my attention. Mirrors? I ask the officer reading the order. Reflective surfaces, she corrects, as if the word itself is dangerous. Auxiliaries reported misalignment in them. Misalignment of what? She does not say. The order is the explanation. We set about veiling everything that shines. Polished brass, dull steel where oil has made it gleam, even the enamel of certain shrine plaques. The ship grows matte, as if light had been convinced to stop trying. At the grand void window we hang a curtain of chain and cloth, a funereal shroud that drowns the view. As the last length falls into place, a pale smudge appears behind the fabric, as though a face presses to it from the other side. Not a face, the idea of one. Where a brow would be, the cloth darkens. Where a mouth might open, the weave sags. Keep working, I say, voice thin. We do. The smudge retreats. When we finish, the curtain hangs quiet. We leave it without ceremony. Heads bowed, backs tight. 7s. These together. Cast. Together. B. And cast. Together. 7s. In cast. Together. And Podaval. The first lumen to scream does so on deck 22. I am 2 corridors away when the sound rises. High, glassy, a filament pulled past endurance. The tone cuts through metal and prayer alike. By the time we reach it, a crowd has formed beneath a ceiling strip that pulses shark white. The panel vibrates. A pilgrim reaches up to slap the housing with his palm, a crude fix that often quiets a rattle. The light snaps off. Darkness. Then the strip inhales and ignites again, brighter than before. Don't touch it, I say, too late. The pilgrim staggers back, fingers blistered, eyes watering. The light has not burned him, it has licked him. I smell not char, but something sweet, like fruit gone wrong. We cut power to the section. The strip stays bright for 1 breath, 2, 3, as if reluctant to die. When at last it dims, it does not go out. It withdraws, drawing itself thin until it threads along the inside of the housing like a vein. The crowd makes the sign. No one speaks. Marn whispers at my shoulder. If it learns to move, we won't have walls. Light must have walls, I say. He looks at me the way a younger brother does when he knows a thing you do not. Not there, Sevens. These tender, is the crest, and when, by the boast and any. The cardinal captain orders a benediction of lamps, an old rite I've only seen in manuals. A ceremony meant for ships that have crossed unlucky voids. Choirs process through key corridors carrying sacred flame in glass boats. The flame's light is honest, not electric. It throws shadows that behave. People lean into that warmth and cry without noise. We pass a sealed Vox grill where the black cloth knot does not stir in our wake. I feel the pull to touch it, to test if maybe the world still tugs the way it should, but I keep to the procession. The flame in the nearest boat gutters as we turn a corner. A draft shouldn't live here, yet the wick trembles. The acolyte shields the glass with his sleeve. The flame steadies, then swells, then leans toward the wall ahead, not toward air, toward a place where the light of the lumen used to be. The flame bows, like iron filings to a magnet. Keep walking, I tell him. He does. The flame rights itself, humble again. Behind us, the shadow of the procession lags a half step. I see it only in a smear at the edge of my vision. When I turn, it obeys the turn too late. Ruther notices. Don't look full at it. A prayer in the warning, not counsel. Sevens. These tender, is the crest, and when, by the boast and any. In the enginarium, the harmonic lines run smooth, defiant. The Magos refuses to call what we see failure. She calls it manifest illumination, variance, a phrase that sounds like a lid placed on boiling water. Still, she consents to a single change. We are to polish certain plates that line the Gellar node's copper skins that act as baffles for stray phenomena. We polish them until they shine, then we veil them with gauze. The contradiction comforts me. It feels like the right kind of superstition. Make a thing worthy, then hide it from envy. As I work, I smell the oil turning sweet again, the way it did the day the hum first faltered. It sticks to the cloth in strings. When I hold my rag up, the strands glow faintly, as if the oil has learned to remember light. I fold the cloth tight and whisper an apology to the machine spirit. The apology tastes of tin. Brother, the Magos says without looking at me, do you understand why light is dangerous? Because we need it. Because something else needs it more. Her servo joints click in the hush. Pray, she says, but keep your eyes down when the Gellar sings. The boundary has learned our gaze. Sevens. These tender, is the crest, and when, by the boast and any. By false night, the ship has grown dim as a chapel between vigils. The few lumen that burn do so sullenly, like lamps punishing us by survival. I make my rounds with a hand lamp set to the lowest honest glow. In the ring of it, the world behaves. Outside it, shadows gather as if for warmth. I can almost pity them. In the corridor to my berth, the lamp falters. For an instant, the world stretches like taffy. The door at the end recedes, comes close, recedes. I plant my feet and let the ship breathe me through it. When the lamp steadies, I'm nearer than I should be. Inside, I do not light the overhead. I set the hand lamp on the floor and let its circle define the room. Above my bunk, the little viewport shows the curtain we hung against the void. The cloth does not move. The thought comes unbidden. If I drew it back, what would the window show? Not the warp, not us. Something that learned both. I do not move. The hum holds. The light holds. I hold. And yet, when I close my eyes, I see a filament drawing itself like a line across the dark, connecting the glow at my feet to something far beyond the hull. It is thin as vow thread and twice as strong. I tell myself it is only imagination. I tell myself many things. None of them change the way the lamp's edge breathes. They name it the flicker hour because no one dares call it night. It comes at no time the chronometers admit. Bells do not mark it. Doors do not lock for it. Still, the ship knows. A soft hush folds along the decks, not silence, not quite. More like cloth placed over a cage. The glow panels dim together as if someone pinched the veins of the light. In each corridor, the brightness withdraws to the edges, leaving the center a long throat of dusk. Pilgrims step off the main spine and into doorways, breathing shallow, palms pressed to rusted saints. Even the servitors, mindless as rosary beads, stall mid-task and wait. The first time it comes, I am at the junction where the starboard feeder lines meet the hymn engine's copper ribs. The hum drops to a pitch that lives in bone. My hand lamp gutters, recovers, gutters again. Within its circle, the bolts on the deck shine honestly. Beyond it, the shadows gather with the purposeful calm of monks. "What do we do?" Marn whispers from the ladder. "We keep count," I say. "And we don't speak if the light moves first." He nods as if that were a prayer he already knew. We listen to the ship breathe through its teeth. Each stutter of brightness is a blink. I count them the way a dying man counts his own inhalations, one for the emperor, one for the saints, one for the nameless dead who still hum in the conduits. On the fourth blink, something leaves a mark. At first I take it for soot. A streak along the bulkhead opposite the ribs, delicate as smoke, shaped almost like a letter. It wasn't there before. I would swear my oath to the engines on it. The line curls back on itself, then doubles. A second stroke laid over the first, as if corrected by an unseen hand. Light returns in a thin breath, and where the glow kisses the mark, it darkens, hardening into script the color of old blood. Rutha arrives with a bucket of solvent that smells of sanctified citrus. She scrubs. The mark fades, resists, then refuses. Under the cloth, more letters bud like scabs. They do not form any catechism, I know, and yet I feel their desire to be read. I look away before they can become a word I might recognize. "Do not trace with your eyes," I tell Marn, and hear the quaver in my own voice. We veil the section in new cloth wards. Under the gauze, the strokes continue to write themselves. Bold when the light is low, faint when it returns. The ship is being annotated by something that does not share our alphabet but knows our urge toward meaning. The flicker hour lengthens, sevens. These tender is the crest, and when, by the boast and any. There is a corridor on deck 17 with no mirrors by law, a relic edict from a distant refit after a void accident no one alive can name. We pass through it on our way to the auxiliary nodes, our arms heavy with coils of gauze, our mouths too tired for prayer. The walls here are matte, the floor scuffed to dullness. Even the shrine plates sanded to a saintless shine. It should comfort me that the world cannot look back. Halfway down, the light arrives before its source. It begins as a bright thought at the far bend, a small coin of radiance that rests on the floor like an abandoned host. It expands, a patient spill, reaching fingers into the seams, climbing the rivets, washing over our boots. We stand stupid in it, because our lamps are still dark and the ceiling strips above us are cold. I look up. The housings remain dead. I look back. The bend burns like a pale mouth opening. Marn breathes. "It's coming from the other side." "Of what?" Rutha asks, but the question is too large for her throat. I raise my hand lamp and turn the wick. The honest glow pushes against the strange light, with a resistance I can feel in my wrist, not heat, not pressure, more like pushing two prayers together and hearing which one dissolves. The coin of radiance recoils as if surprised. It thins, threads, slips along the wall, and disappears around the bend from which it never should have come. We stand until our breath names us as living. Then we walk, slow and foolish, toward the corner. Nothing waits beyond it but the same mirrorless hall, the same veiled saints, the same promise of work. Still, I cannot shake the feeling that we have missed a meeting by seconds, as if the light had arrived early to look at us before we became ourselves. We chalk the deck where it pooled. A faint glitter remains, embedded in scuffs that no brush will lift. This while, and destaduan tuas savin. In the days that follow, if days can be said to survive in a place where the chronometer's truth no longer calms, the burn marks multiply. Some look like script, some like diagrams scraped by a nail. Once, on the skin of a valve cap, I find the shape of a handprint rendered in negative, the metal around it smoked to brown, the palm left bright as new coin. The hand is too long by a finger and too narrow by a prayer. I polish until the shape is gone. When I stop, it swims back up through the shine like something rising from depth. Leave it, the Magos says, voice dry as rhyme. We will not win against the urge. She means the urge to make meaning. I pretend I think she means only the stains. Pilgrims begin to carry lamps with shades that cast dim halos shaped like icons. They step from island to island, lifting their light carefully from the floor like a thing that could spill. On the outer decks, where the void window curtains hang heavy, I hear laughter during a flicker, thin and sincere, and for a moment envy the cruelty of joy that survives anywhere. When I turn the corner, the corridor is empty of anything that laughs. We collect the dead glow panels in a crate and stack them like gravestones. Their surfaces hold faint afterimages of the places they once ruled. A hatch outline, a damp ladder print, a smear that could be a face if you are cruel to yourself. Marn strokes one with a fingertip. Do you think they remember? He asks. The panels, the rooms, the light. The light. If they do, we should not. He nods and does not touch again. This while, and destaduan tuas savin. The flicker hour closes the way it opens, without permission. The glow panels take their light back as if nothing ever paused, and for a little while the saints on the walls are only metal again. We work fast in those intervals, washing, polishing, veiling, rubbing oil into seams like balm into bruises. In my berth, the hand lamp burns steady, faithful as a dog. I set it on the floor and open my small book to write, because writing is a kind of light that does not interrogate the room. My pen scratches softly. Between each word I look up to where the viewport curtain hangs. It does not move. The hum holds like a man holding his breath to avoid waking what sleeps beside him. When my eyes close, they do not shut on dark. Behind my lids, the corridor with no mirrors glows with its own coin of light, arriving before any source, seeking the shape of my face so it might learn it. I think of the burn letters, the handprint in negative, the way the ship blinks when we dare to pray too loudly. If the Emperor tests us, he does so with light. If the warp answers, it does so with the same. I fall asleep, counting breaths between blinks. And when I wake, I cannot tell if I stopped at 5 because the lamp steadied or because someone on the other side forgot the next number. They begin to seal the decks without bells. No proclamations, no liturgy, only the quiet march of men with wrenches and wax, edging the ship shut as if tucking a fevered child into a too small bed. Yellow hazard sigils bloom along the bulkheads like sick flowers. Doors that have never slept learn to. The order filters down as a gesture, not a sentence. Palms pressed flat to hatches, heads bowed, a smear of sanctified grease over a seam. We work in pairs, then threes, then with whoever will stand close enough to offer their breath as proof of life. Rutha murmurs a psalm whose words are mostly hum. Maan carries a coil of prayer cord and loops it through handholds in neat figure eights, as if he could tie the air to the metal. Pressure, an Enginsia says without looking at us. Voice filtered through a mask that smells of old lemon. Warp pressure, the barrier bows. Like skin, Maan whispers. She pretends not to hear. The lights do not fail today. They dim and swell in time with something slower than the ship and heavier than any hymn. The glow seems to gather in corners, as if light prefers to sleep with its back to a wall. Pilgrims shuffle past with lamps shaded to icons, their mouths shape prayers. But the edict of silence still holds, and the only sound is cloth on steel and the distant, ever-present hum, more intimate than touch. In the coolant galleries, the air bites. Frost rims the pipework in delicate fans. Each vent exhales a thin fog, clean and sterile and unforgiving. We grease the valves until our hands shine in the dim. The gauges tremble in their housings, needles wavering at the upper lines, before returning obediently to their marks. "Listen," Ruther says. "We already are." At first it is nothing but the hiss of coolant, the sound of 1,000 tiny teeth gnawing heat from the ship. Then there is a shape inside that noise, not a word, not even a voice. The careful, patient rhythm of inhalation and release. I press my ear to the pipe. The chill knifes through the cartilage and settles behind my eye. The sound strengthens. A breath drawn along metal, held, let go. The hold is longer than ours. The letting go is wetter. I take my head away as if the pipe could bite. "It's just expansion," Marn says, too quickly. "Pressure harmonics." "Then why does it wait?" Ruther asks. We move on. Because work is a kind of prayer the warp has not yet learned to counterfeit. Sealing a deck is both simple and sacramental. We daub the seams with an oil that once smelled of iron and now smells faintly sweet. Tie off the manual overrides with prayer cord. Kiss the bronze aquila until our lips taste of coin, and chalk the date in block letters beside the hatch. The chalk will smear before the next cycle. The date will not matter. It comforts the hand that writes it. Pilgrims watch from thresholds with the stilled curiosity of livestock. Some offer us relic strips for the glue seals, hair knotted around old nails, parchment with saints' names burned into it, and we affix them because superstition is a kind of architecture. An old woman presses a warm rosary into my palm. The beads are carved from bone. "For lungs," she whispers, and whether she means mine or the ship's, I do not ask. On deck 27, a child's drawing has been tacked to a shrine plate, a ship shaped like a candle with a halo taller than the mast. A line of blue along its belly could be ocean or flame. The child has smeared the blue with a thumb where the halo meets the hull. The smear points outward. I am ashamed of the relief I feel when Ruther pockets the drawing without a word. We reach the throat vents. They rise from the deck like organ pipes, fat as men, capped in rust and seals. The air from them is cold enough to sting the gums. The frost on their lips has human textures, whorls and ridges like fingerprints, as if something pressed its face there to listen. Marn reaches toward one with a gloved hand. I catch his wrist. "Do not," I say. "Not skin to skin. The glove, not skin." I repeat. "Yours, or the ship's." He nods a child's nod. We begin the vent right. 3 turns of the locking ring, a whisper the vent cannot hear, a dab of oil, a cloth drawn across the seal in the sign of the aquila. The metal hums under my palm, answering hands rather than words. When we complete the 3rd vent, the 2nd exhales. A slow, pleased sound. I taste tin. "Did you open it?" Ruther asks. "No." The exhale becomes a long, low intake, pulling the fog back across the deck in a ribbon that curls around our boots before vanishing. It leaves the floor dry. The gauges do not move. The lines remain within margins our manuals would still call safe. I do not look at the manuals. By the time we reach the aft bulkheads, the ship has begun to breathe with us. Not metaphor. Our steps fall into the pocket between hums. Our hands lift to valves at the exact moments the pipes sigh. Our blinks have learned to wait for the flicker. To resist it feels like stumbling against a partner who waltzes without you. I force my timing to fail. The breath that answers is annoyed. "We're being trained," Marn says, soft as a letter left under a door. "Then unlearn," I tell him, and strike my knuckles against the pipe for the sake of noise. The sound cracks the air like small thunder. For a second, one blessed, banal second, the fog across the grates breaks into honest eddies. Indifferent to rhythm, the vent inhales, holds longer. Don't, Rutha hisses. You'll make it look at you. Don't. She is right. The pause is a stare you can feel. We retreat to the central spine to collect more cord and wax. There, the ceiling crews bunch at intersections like blood in a too narrow vein. An officer recites assignments from a slate. Voice clipped to keep from carrying. Deck 31. Close. 32. Close. 33. Hold for discipline inspection. The words feel like beads clicked along a string. Someone asks, "What of 34? No one answers. We all know what it means when a deck is not named. We head toward 33. The passage is narrower than I remember, though I haven't grown. On the way, the curtain we hung over the void window has gathered a bloom of frost along its lower edge. The pattern is not random. It echoes the faint calligraphy we scrubbed from other bulkheads, strokes repeated in ice, curved and deliberate. I raise my glove to brush it. Rutha slaps my wrist so hard it stings through the leather. "No tracing," she says, "not even with cloth." I want to thank her and cannot find the breath. The ship has taken it to hold for later. At the hatch to 33, we find the coolant pipes singing. Not loud, not music. A filament of sound that threads the air and tightens when we approach, loosens when we draw back. The gauges read nothing unusual. The frost on the pipes smokes under our lamps as though the cold were burning. I press my ear, despite my own rule. The breath inside is closer now, as if the pipe has turned to present its mouth to me. I whisper before I know I'm speaking. "If you answer, be only him." The pipe inhales, a sound like a page being turned underwater. Behind it, behind that, a patient shaping of air as if some vast lung on the other side of the hull has learned the rhythm of ours and means to teach us a slower one. I step away. I do not run. Running is noise. Noise is a road. We chalk the hatch and tie it off. The knot feels like binding a wound that will not close. When we turn to leave, the fog on the grating rises a finger's width and follows. Lazily, as if too tired to pursue another step, Mon looks back only once. "Brother," he says, "what is the sound a miracle makes when it is wrong?" The corridor answers with a breath we did not take. The ship's lungs never sleep now. Every corridor exhales. The air carries a faint sweetness, like breath pushed through honey. At first we think it mercy warmth in the cold decks, but warmth implies life, and life implies hunger. They assign us to stay near the engineerium, to observe harmonic shifts. The Magos won't name what she hears, though I see her listening with her whole frame. Servo limbs stilled, augmetic ribs flaring like gills. Around her, the pipes are wrapped in gauze to quiet their moans. It doesn't help. The sound travels through everything. Even my teeth have learned its pitch. "Pressure equalization," she tells me, though her lips barely move. An old vessel breathes as the void presses. "You are imagining pattern." "I am," I say, and the pattern imagines me. She doesn't answer. She's somewhere else already, deep inside the machine's new rhythm. When I return to the lower decks, the ceiling crews have gone. The hatches are marked with wax crosses, but the wax has melted and run upward. Against gravity, the air here is dense. Each inhale feels like drinking. I find Rutha and Mon in the maintenance shrine. They have lit only one lamp. The flame bends toward the floor, a steady bow. "The hum's gone slow," Mon says. "Listen." I do. The Gellar field still sings, but its voice is layered one tone inside another, like two throats sharing breath. Between them is a pause too long to be mechanical. "Someone's in the gap," Rutha whispers. Something's using the stillness to speak. She might be right. In that hush between pulses, I catch the faint sound of syllables forming in the coolant vents. They have the cadence of prayer, but not the language. I cover my ears. It doesn't help. The sound lives in the bones. By mid-shift, condensation blooms along the ceilings again, but this time it drips upward. Each droplet rises slow, glittering, until it merges with the metal. Wherever it touches, frost patterns blossom outward in concentric rings, fine as fingerprints. We watch them spread across the hatch we sealed that morning. The lines overlap until they sketch something like a face, not human, just the memory of a gaze. Rutha crosses herself. It's looking for air, thirst. Then let it find only ours, I say. But the words taste false. In the mess void, pilgrims sit in silence, hands clasped around respirator vents. No one eats. Breathing has become the new prayer. Shallow, careful, timed to the ship. Those who breathe too fast start to bleed from the nose. The chaplains call it stigmata and bless them. I see fear behind the blessings. A boy with a broken rebreather sits beside me. If we stop breathing, he asks, will the ship stop too? Maybe, I say. Maybe it will remember the sound. He nods solemnly, as if that's comfort. Later, in the upper catwalks, Mon and I inspect the coolant pipes again. The gauges now swing without reason. The pressure values climb and fall like pulse lines. When I touch the metal, it contracts slightly under my palm, not shrinking, but drawing in, the way skin goosefleshes at a sudden chill. The sound inside the pipe matches my heartbeat for 3 counts, then swerves away. Mon presses his ear close. His breath fogs the steel. The fog doesn't fade. It sinks into the surface like ink into paper. I think it's breathing with us, he says. Not against. That's worse, I tell him. That means it's learning. He doesn't move. If it's learning, maybe it wants to live. Everything wants to live, even what shouldn't. 2. We finish our rounds and head back toward the sealed decks. The corridor walls shimmer faintly, a distortion like heat mirage, though the air is cold enough to burn. My exhalations trail behind me as ribbons of fog that do not dissipate. They hang mid-air, twisting, merging. Marn watches them and smiles faintly. They're staying, he says. Like they don't want to go. Keep walking. When we pass the last turn, I glance back. The fog shapes still hang in the air, 2 pale silhouettes caught in the act of breathing. The one shaped like me exhales a second later than I do. The Magos has sealed herself into the Enganarium. Through the glass partition, I can see her suspended in cables, spine arched, hands buried in the node conduits. Her vox mask fogs with every breath she takes. But the condensation doesn't fade. It collects, thickens, rises toward the ceiling in a slow, deliberate spiral. The machine around her hums like a throat clearing before a word. Rutha touches my shoulder. She's feeding it, or it's feeding her. Do we stop her? How do you stop someone mid-prayer? At rest cycle, I try to sleep in my bunk, but the air is restless. Each time I close my eyes, I feel the pillow rise and fall beneath my cheek. The rhythm matches the ship's, not mine. I hold my breath to test it. The movement continues. The mattress exhales warm against my skin. I sit upright, trembling, and whisper the first line of the Catechism of Containment. Metal is the wall. Breath is the soul. The wall answers with a slow sigh. When morning comes or whatever passes for it, the chronometers are still. Their hands hover between marks, indecisive. Mon meets me outside the shrine. His eyes are bright with sleeplessness. I found where it's strongest, he says. Where the breath goes deepest. Where? He points downward, toward the sealed decks below. The ones not named. I already know he's right. I've heard it too that long, wet inhalation somewhere beneath the hull. The sound of the ship remembering lungs it was never built to have. Rutha grips her wrench like a weapon. If we go there, we don't come back. Mon smiles the way the faithful do before they kneel. Maybe that's the point. I look toward the stairwell, where the frost writes its moving scripture, and the air swells in quiet rhythm. The hum deepens until it's almost a heartbeat. I think of the boy in the mess and his question, if we stop breathing, will the ship stop too? I take one breath, slow and careful, and the corridor answers, inhaling in perfect time. The first warning is not loud. It is a sweetness. Oil has always smelled like metal made humble, sharp, clean, a hint of incense from consecration. Today the scent ripens in the trays beneath the hymn engines until my tongue aches with it. I tilt a catch can to test the flow. The stream comes slow, thick as syrup, clinging to the lip before it lets go, and ropes downward in a glistening thread that lands with a sound too soft to be honest. Where it pools on the deck, it spreads in a steady circle, and then impossibly pulses once, like a throat swallowing. Rutha crouches beside me with a cloth, her lips already shaping a rebuke. The rebuke never arrives. We both watch. We both count. 1, she whispers. The circle stops moving. I touch the edge with my glove. The oil grips like a beggar's hand, elastic, then releases with reluctance. On the pad of my glove, it gleams a red too dark to be dye, too warm to be rust. Oxidation, I say before anyone else can name it. Blood, Marn says, soft as if the word might curdle if heard. We look to the engine seer on duty. She does not look back. Her optics are fixed on the gauges that monitor the Gellar feed needles steady, numbers true, truth useless. Drain lines 4 through 7, she says in a voice that tries to be ordinary. Purge, replace, re-sanctify. I open the valves. The hymn engine coughs. The line burps bubbles that smell like a church after a funeral. We bleed the system. The rite should be rote, a measured chant. 3 turns of wrench for each valve, a call and response between man and machine. Today, the response lags. Our voices move ahead and the pipes answer late, like a choir singing through sleep. The flow grows darker as it runs, not lighter. New oil enters the system clear and comes out stained, as if the metal learns corruption while it carries grace. Marn recites the corrective litany faster than he ought, breathless with the hope that speed can outrun contagion. The hum drops a fraction of a tone. You feel it in your ribs. The glow panels over the vault shiver into a dimmer spectrum, and then 3 of them flare crimson for as many heartbeats and die back to amber as if embarrassed by the truth. Photonic variance, the engine seer says tightly, but her hands have started to shake. In the corner, a pilgrim who should not be here kneels beside a drip pan and dips a finger into the red. He smears the sign of the Aquila across his brow and smiles, transfigured. By the time the ship's security hauls him out, 3 others have done the same. The floor where their knees touched will not scrub clean. We work until the sweat turns cold on our backs. We replace filters. We polish seals. We say everything we were taught to say in case words are stronger than chemistry. When we pause, the engine seer authorizes a short rest. No one moves to sit. The air is too heavy near the deck. You feel like you might inhale something that remembers someone else. I press my palm to the hull, as I have always done when the world seems thin. The warmth there feels wrong now. Not engine heat, not friction. A pulse, slow, confident. I take my hand away. Basevin, Rive, and then the Rive has. I have browned. There, I really. And the Rave. Rive has. And the Rive has. They relieved the sides. All wise. We have Felv. Rive has. And that with people. We have Den. By second bell, the mist arrives. It seeps down from the venting like breath through linen, faintly pink when the light takes it. Pilgrims on deck 16 move through it as if through morning fog on some old world they lost. Their faces shine with sweat that does not smell of sweat. An acolyte stands at the edge of the nave on tiptoe, mouth open, catching the vapor as if it were incense. When I draw him back by the collar, his lips glisten. He tries to speak and cannot. His tongue moves with a weight it never had. Do not taste. I tell those near enough to hear. If you taste, it learns your shape. They obey for as long as I stand there. After I leave, I know they will not. Basevin. Rive. And then the rive has. I have browned. There. I really. And the rave. Rive has. And the rive has. They relieve decides. All wise. We have felv. Rive has. And that with people. We have den. Back in the Enganarium, the Magos orders a full purge. Flood and flush, she says, until the lines give us back their honesty. She steps toward the central node to oversee the chant herself, cables uncoiling behind her like a bridal train. Magos, I say before I can help it. The oil is oil, she answers. Matter follows rules, even when we do not. Her mask breathes, frost grows along its edges and refuses to melt. She does not seem to notice. We begin the second purge. The pump's rhythm should be our metronome. Instead, the machine lurches off-beat, and we half-run to keep up. Rutha's hands, so sure in every right, miss a turn and catch flesh. She sucks her knuckle and winces. The blood on her tongue is not hers. I see it in the way she goes still. She wipes her mouth with the back of her wrist and keeps singing. When the first cycle ends, the sight gauge in the primary line shows clarity for 3 breaths, and then clouds again, a blush drawn through glass. Replace, the Magos says. Replace again. She moves deeper between the nodal pillars, palm against the baffles to feel their song. The cables that feed her cranial ports drape from overhead rails and sway with the vault's vibration. I remember the first time I saw her newly ascended, face still more flesh than plate, and how she taught us to listen at the metal the way mothers teach children to listen at shells. I remember thinking that she had turned her body into a tool in order to be closer to God. I am not sure now that God was the only listener. The flash is small. The sound is smaller, a soft consonant as a servo seizes. Then all the cables tighten at once. She rises not by choice. The pull is gentle, almost polite, like a lover's hand guiding a dance. Her boots lift an inch, then 2, and then she is hanging. The mask fogs. The fog thickens, pink, and does not fall. It collects along the curve of the glass and runs upward into the ceiling like a prayer returning to a mouth. Cut power, someone says. No one moves. To cut power is to let the field falter. To let the field falter is to ask what waits. We stand like children watching a teacher faint. Her arms go limp. The cables take all that remains. A bead of red forms at her wrist where a port has torn. It swells, breaks, and drips onto the console below. The console hums, pleased. The lights do not change. The hum does. I am first to reach her too late by half a breath, enough that I must pretend it matters. We sever the lesser links. The great cable in her spine refuses. Her head tips forward, mask glass catching the glow. Behind it, her eyes are open. What looks out through them is not fear. It is the expression of a woman who has finally heard the note she wanted and wishes only that she could sing it back. We lower her with care. We do not pronounce a cause. There is no spare oil. The hymn demands oil. Rutha looks at me. I look at the console. Man looks at the floor. In the end, it is not a choice but a continuation. We dip cloth into what has pooled and draw it in the sign we have always drawn. And the engines accept it, and the hum steadies like a heartbeat calmly reclaiming itself after a run. No edict forbids what we have done. No blessing approves it. The ship approves it. He nods, accepting the rebuke as if it were a version of hope. The machine has veins, he says again, with the quiet joy of a man explaining a found truth to himself. We are in them. He leaves me with the curtain and the mark and the hum. I stay a long time, because staying is a form of courage, when leaving is easy. When? Rappin. When? Reppin. Reppin. The last thing that night is small and shaming. I dream of walking the corridor with no mirrors, the one where light arrives before its source. In the dream, I carry a lamp that does not burn, only breathes. Each step leaves a wet print behind me, not on the floor but within it, as if my feet were pressed into the ship's memory. I turn to see how many I have left and find that the prints are moving by themselves, catching up, smearing into a continuous line like a vein. I wake with my heart raw in my throat. My boots by the bunk gleam dark along their soles, as if a hand had drawn 2 long strokes from heel to toe in something that remembers being blood. I scrub them until the leather squeals. The lines fade. When I stop, they come back. I laugh once, a sound like metal being bent by a tired man, and set the boots back in line beneath the bunk. I tell myself nothing has changed. The field still sings. The walls still stand. The lights still answer. Duty is still a scaffold that holds my breath upright. When I place my palm to the hull to pray before sleep, the warmth there answers me in a slow, patient rhythm that is not my own. The ship inhales, holds, exhales where I would not. My pulse tries to follow and fails. The failure is a kind of relief. If this is corruption, it has the shape of devotion. If this is faith, it has learned to bleed. I whisper the service of endurance with my mouth closed. The words move through me anyway. In their wake, something in the oil lines hums as if pleased. In the dark, I learn the most dangerous comfort. I am not alone in my breathing. I enter on a borrowed breath. The choir vault seals behind me without a hand on the wheel, the door's weight settling home like a lid on a reliquary. Lamps hang low and stingy. Their glow does not travel far. It clings to the iron like a wounded thing. Beyond those meek circles, the room is all ribs and pipes and prayer wire, a machine built to carry praise the way a lung carries air. I wash my hands for a long time after. The smell never leaves. Then zisnide, when we thank you believe. The red spreads like doctrine. It appears in the smallest places first. The seam at the base of a light housing, the socket of a bolt, the etched line of a saint's name, worn to ghost. Pilgrims begin painting their palms with the oil and pressing them to the bulkheads to leave benedictions. Each palm warms the metal. Each warmth lingers longer than it should, as if the ship has learned a new kind of memory. Command orders, the practice stopped. The chaplains say the color is unclean. The lower decks sing in silence and anoint anyway, because comfort that answers is stronger than commandments that do not. I do not correct them. I do not join them. I work. In the mess void, a man breaks his ration bar and red threads pull between the halves. He laughs without humor and eats. No one stops him. Hunger has learned to look like worship. On the way to the coolant galleries, I see children playing a game I do not recognize. They hold their breath to the count of 5 while staring at the floor. At 5, they exhale together and watch whatever they see move at their feet. Their eyes widen, they try to catch it with their hands. It's warm, one whispers. The others nod as if they have caught a kitten. We seal more decks. The wax still runs the wrong way. The frost's handwriting has grown bolder, thickening into strokes that almost become letters in my childhood catechism and then curve away, laughing at my memory for trying to read. Once, on a hatch, I find a phrase perfectly formed in low Gothic, behold. How it holds you and I take soot and smear the letters until they cannot be sounded. Do not give it grammar, Ruther tells me. Grammar makes a road. Then zisnide, when we thank you believe. Before false night, the field purrs at a pitch more animal than engine. The whole ship vibrates in a rhythm that any body would wish to answer. My breath tries to match of its own accord. I break the cadence every third inhale. The ship waits. It forgives. It resumes. The forgiveness is worse than anger. I go to the observation blister because I have always gone there when I cannot stand myself. The curtain we hung over the void glass hangs heavy as a wet shroud. At its lower edge, the frost writing glows faintly with the panel light. It spells nothing and everything. I press my forehead against the metal rim, and whisper, "Please." What answers is the softest sound. One drop of something red meeting steel. I look down. A bead has formed on the seam of the bulkhead by my knee. It quivers, round as a prayer bead, and then begins to travel. Not straight, not obeying gravity, but pulling itself along the rim with a patience that is almost tenderness. When it reaches my boot, it pauses. The leather warms through. The bead splits into two smaller beads and flows around the toe, leaving a clean mark that looks like a blessing. "Brother," Marn says behind me, and I do not start because of course he is there. "Don't move." He kneels, studying the mark. "It knows our shape." "Everything knows our shape," I say. "It is the one thing we have never truly hidden." He looks up, eyes fever bright. "Then perhaps it is not an enemy. It is not a friend." They are still at their posts. Mouths closed, eyes open. Voices gone. Each singer stands in a harness of braided cabling, the cords threaded through the augmetic throats that once gave them pitch and discipline. A red line joins skin to valve, vein to instrument. Where it enters flesh, the color has turned dark as a scab. Where it enters metal, the copper shines, as if polished by devotion. I know they are alive because the room hums with their condition. The note that holds the Gellar steady now wears a second tone, thin and high. The sound a glass makes when a finger circles its rim without mercy. You hear it more in bone than ear. It vibrates behind the teeth. It tastes of iron. Rutha kneels beside the nearest singer and holds her palm an inch from his mouth. No fog, no warmth. The chest rises and falls with the ship's pulse, not his. When she speaks his name, the cords tremble in answer while the body does not. "They're not breathing," she says. But the room is. I step to the dais, where the choirmaster's lectern leans like a broken metronome. The scorebook chained to it has bled at the corners. Oil has drunk through the paper in the shape of fingertips. Its staves are blank now. The song does not need marks. "Forgive us," I whisper, though I do not know to whom. The great coil at the vault's heart inhales. We feel it, not with skin, but with the steadiness of our knees. A low rush passes along the pipes and gathers at the singers' throats. The cords swell, red beads traveling up their length with patient gravity against the world, and then the air moves through the room without wind. It is carried the way incense is carried, by intention. The note that rises is not a human vowel. It is the ship's own exhale shaped through what once were voices. The boundary around us thickens. I feel the field lift to meet pressure with praise, like a calloused hand meeting a blade. For a blink, the light steadies everywhere. Lamps hold. Frost stops writing. Somewhere above, a corridor finishes its breath. I hear the collective ease of 1,000 chests. Blessing tastes like brass. "It works," Marn says. Joy and terror braided together, as if he has seen a saint made of wire. "It costs," Rutha answers. I climb the steps to the lead singer. His eyes follow me not by movement but by attention. The irises have paled like paper left in sunlight. I lay my palm on his chest. It is warm, but not with heart. The warmth is borrowed from the hymn the way a wall is warm beside a furnace that does not love it. "Can you hear me?" I ask, because hope remains a superstition I have not unlearned. He exhales. The sound that leaves him moves along the pipe behind his head, a clear thread drawn through a dark throat. It touches the coil and returns, not as echo, but as agreement, one voice teaching another how to be faithful. For the length of that exchange, I understand nothing and everything. I see the ship as a bell and the warp as a room that hates bells. I see our song vibrating a thin dome around us where intention outlasts appetite, and I feel the dome sag where sorrow presses hardest. I weep because the understanding is too large for a man, and because it is beautiful, and because beauty is a weapon that cuts both ways. "Brother," Rutha says, and I know the tone in her voice, the one she uses when something must be done that will hurt the world in order to keep it. She has a ritual knife in her hand. The blade is thick with dried oil and prayer. She is already at the second singer, where the cord enters the clavicle. No, I say. But I am late even to my own refusal. She cuts. The line parts with a sound like a string breaking in a dark theater. Light jets, not light, not liquid. A third thing that remembers both and strikes the vault ceiling. It branches instantly into a frost of veins, sketching a negative tree that grows and stops and grows again. The hum wavers. Far above, something sighs as a deck loses its lamps. The singer sags into the harness. His head tips forward. The room inhales. Off-tempo, a gasp that does not know whose lungs it serves. Maan is already moving. He slaps a wax seal onto the severed ends and presses his thumb to it until the seal takes. The branching light ceases to grow. The waver in the hum rounds back into a line. Somewhere a child stops crying because a haloing flicker steadied in the dark. We stand in the aftermath and listen to the measure limping into time. The cut man hums through a dry mouth. His lips have lost the grammar of speech. When Ruther strokes his hair, a flake the color of dried blood comes away. It smells like sanctified oil and old breath. "We can't save them," she says. She is not asking for reassurance. She is asking for permission to be damned. I shake my head. We can only be saved through them. The knife lowers. I take it from her hand without struggle and place it on the lectern, spine toward me. We do not cut again. Instead, we set about the tasks we can name. We tighten harness straps that have loosened with the hymn's pull. We brush frost from eyelids that have begun to gather script. We anoint cracked lips with the last clear drops left in a bottle that has known too many hands. We whisper names into ears that do not belong to mouths anymore. When the room exhales its next long tone, I mouth the shape along with it. Not to sing, not aloud, only to know the muscle of it. The pitch settles along my tongue like coin. The vault's lamps brighten by a hair and hold. Listen. Maan breathes. Between the coil's low thunder and the glass-high whine, there is a third sound now. The quietest rasp of human throats remembering how to be more than echo. Not rebellion, not return. Participation. The vault is teaching them. Or they are teaching the vault. Or the boundary teaches us all, indifferent as whether to which roof it saves. Ruther leans her head against the railing and closes her eyes. If this is worship, she says, it is the kind that costs the tongue. Then we will learn to pray with bone, I say, and I do not know whether the words are mine. We leave the door unbarred when we go. The latch settles as if satisfied with our decision. In the corridor outside, the hum seems softer, like a beast that has eaten enough for 1 hour. Pilgrims kneel in doorways, lips shut, hands to chests. They do not know that men and women without voices keep them whole. They do not need to. The lesson is the same either way. Breath, given, becomes wall. That night, sleep comes like a mercy mistaken for judgment. The vents around my bunk exhale in time with me until I lose track of who leads. When I dream, it is of ladders of light running through ribbed metal, of air passing through pipes, of a choir of corridors. I wake with my mouth open and my room warm as a hand laid on a fevered brow. I say the first line of the old catechism and stop before the second. The second belongs to the ship now. It speaks it for me without voice, without lips, with the certainty of pressure finding the shape of its container. I listen. I agree. For the length of one blessed pause, the Emperor feels near. Then the breath moves on. It begins with light again. But this time it has direction. The Gellar glow no longer surrounds us evenly. It looks at us, wherever we stand. It finds us first. The panels ignite one by one down the spine of the ship as if an invisible hand drags a torch through fog. Every surface gleams too long, as though the metal waits to see what reflection we choose to give it. We are no longer sealing decks. We are tending them. Ruther marks the hatches with the new sigil, a circle with a line drawn outward, like an eye beginning to open. She says the ship taught her the shape in a dream. When I draw it, The chalk warms in my hand. The hum beneath our boots swells until it's almost melody. We do not sing anymore. We breathe in time. The ship answers with a pulse in the hull that feels like acknowledgement. For the first time since the beginning, I think the field is not failing, it is waking. Marn finds me in the coolant galleries. The frost is gone. The pipes sweat instead, and the droplets run in veins toward the floor grates. "It's inside now," he says. "The outside can't reach us because there's no outside left." He might be right. When I look at the metal, I see depth where there should be surface layers of glow, as though the walls are made of translucent skin and we can glimpse the current running beneath. I press my hand against it. A pulse answers, slower than mine, heavier. When I pull away, a pale outline of my fingers lingers, glowing faintly, and then seeps inward, absorbed. The ship has begun to remember us by touch. In the chapel, the remaining pilgrims have taken to kneeling beneath the lumen icons. They do not speak. Their chests rise and fall with the same rhythm as the walls. The silence there is not absence, it's shared breath. When I pass, one of them reaches for my sleeve. His eyes are white, pupils burned out from staring into the last crimson flare, yet he smiles. He hears us, he says, because we finally learned his language. Outside the chapel, Rutha waits with the maintenance reports written in oil instead of ink. The words shift on the page, forming and unforming. She doesn't seem afraid. "He doesn't need paper," she murmurs. "He needs memory." By third bell, the Magos's body is gone. The cables that held her have tightened back into the ceiling. In her place stands a column of red-gold light that breathes slowly, swelling and contracting. It hums in the key of the ship's heart. I find myself kneeling before it without thought. Marn whispers behind me, "Do you see her face?" I almost do flickers of features in the glow. Kind, mechanical, patient. She looks neither dead nor alive, only aware. When the light exhales, the air tastes of ozone and incense. She's part of it now. The field needed a voice. Rutha answers, "It needs all of ours." We gather in the maintenance shrine as the final shift begins. Outside, the warp presses close, an ocean made of colorless pressure. The field sings. We feel it through our teeth. The lights flicker, not in warning but like eyelids adjusting to dawn. The walls blur. The air thickens. The hum rises beyond hearing. For a moment, I am weightless, suspended in vibration. I see the ship as one immense lung, expanding, contracting, drawing the last fragments of matter and spirit into itself. Rutha grips my wrist. "Breathe," she says. Though we are already doing so, I breathe. The ship breathes back. Every corridor, every sealed hatch, every pilgrim and servitor and pipe joins the rhythm. It is no longer the hum of defense. It is the heartbeat of an awakened thing. The warp presses in and finds no seam. It finds itself mirrored, bound not by metal but by intention. The field has opened its eyes, and it is looking out. When the brightness passes, we stand in silence that feels clean. Outside the void window, the stars are closer than they should be, vast, still watching. The red oil in the catch trays runs clear again. The air smells of iron and prayer. Rutha turns to me. "Is it over?" "No," I say. It's beginning. I press my hand to the hull. The warmth that answers is no longer borrowed. It is ours. The ship breathes once more, slow, patient, eternal. And for the first time, I do not know whether I am inside it or it inside me. The hum has ended, not broken, completed. What remains is the echo of completion. A silence shaped like breath that forgot where it began. I wake with my cheek against warm steel. The deck's vibration is gone. yet it feels alive beneath my skin. The air is thin, but kind. The light is low, white edged with gold, moving as if stirred by thought. Every shift of brightness carries a faint rhythm, slower than heartbeat, deeper than pulse. Rutha lies beside the shrine bulkhead, eyes open, calm. "Did it stop?" she asks. "No," I whisper. "It finished." We sit up together. The corridor ahead gleams like the inside of an eyelid. The wax seals we painted on the hatches have melted into perfect circles. The frost script has dissolved, leaving faint impressions like dried salt. The ship's skin is clean again. Maan's voice echoes from the next junction, clear, steady, peaceful. It isn't humming anymore. It's thinking. He steps into the light, bareheaded, barehanded. His palms glow faintly where the oil once touched him. He isn't afraid. We walk the spine toward the observation blister. The air thickens gently, as though resisting haste. Every breath tastes faintly of metal and ozone, the perfume of sanctified machinery. Along the way, the statues have blurred. Their features are no longer saints, but the soft amalgam of everyone who served. Engineers, pilgrims, children. The ship is remembering faces. At a shrine niche, a prayer cog spins slowly without wind. Its teeth glint like wet ivory. The motion is perfect, frictionless. I reach out, and it stops beneath my finger, not by force but by agreement. "Brother," Rutha says softly, "listen." I do. There is a sound beneath the stillness, a resonance that isn't mechanical. It's the sound of distance shrinking. The universe is close now, pressed against the hull like an ear against a door. When we reach the blister, the curtain is gone. The void beyond no longer looks like night. It's milk white, shimmering with faint color like oil on water. Stars pulse behind it, slower, larger. Their light does not pierce the veil. It dwells within it, patient. The field has become visible, no longer a barrier, but a skin of light that breathes. The ship hangs in that luminous mist like an idea too large to fade. Maan presses his hand to the glass. "We made it through." "To where?" Rutha asks. He smiles. Through into. The words feel right, even if I don't yet understand them. Down below, the decks murmur softly. The sound is not movement but memory. I sense every chamber, every corridor still inhabited by what we once were. The singers in the vaults, the engineers, the pilgrims, they are not gone. The walls carry their rhythm. The air hums their names. I can feel them in me too. The hum that once surrounded us has settled inside bone and blood, quiet but eternal. Each breath is answered by a warmth in the ribs, a reminder that we no longer serve the field, we are it. Rutha kneels, head bowed. "If this is salvation, it's nothing like I prayed for. It's what we built," I say. "All those years of chanting and oil and faith. We were never shielding ourselves from the warp. We were teaching it how to hold us. The realization is gentle. It doesn't shock. It soothes." I look out again. The veil brightens with every heartbeat. Far across its curve, shapes move slow, vast, radiant. Not ships, not spirits. The silhouettes of other vessels caught mid-transit, their fields joining ours, their lights merging into one living halo. Each breath they take joins ours until I can't tell which heartbeat belongs to whom. The St. Corvain's mercy is no longer a ship. It's a verse in a larger hymn. When the first whisper comes, it's inside my head, but I know it's real. Not language presence, a warmth behind thought. Vast and kind, we are held. I think the words back, and the ship answers through the deck, through the air, through my lungs. My chest feels open, weightless. Every part of me is equal parts metal, oil, prayer, and light. Rutha takes my hand. "Do you hear him?" I almost smile. I hear us. The light around us intensifies. The veil outside folds inward, wrapping the hull in a soft spiral of radiance. The ship exhales once an immense, patient sigh, and then drifts forward into the quiet. In the final moment before everything turns white, I remember the first prayer I ever whispered into the machine. Metal is the wall, breath is the soul. I see now that I misunderstood it. The wall was never meant to last. Only the breath was holy. The stillness stretches until it becomes sound again, a single note, endless and calm. We breathe it. We are it. The Emperor protects. I think he listens through the quiet between stars.